Breaking news! Get ready, my friends. Things are very hot behind the scenes for the Eagles, and if you're a true fan, you'll want to hear about it. Howie has made a few more signings, all of them low-key, all of them potentially game-changing, and it looks like we're in for more. What's Howie Roseman cooking up? Many believe that one of these players could be the missing piece to take the Eagles back to the Super Bowl. Man, I don't know exactly what Howie's plans are, but I trust him. If you think Howie knows what he's doing, hit that like button hard. If possible, comment like this: Go Eagles! Let's fly higher! So, here's the news. First off, in the last few hours, the Eagles signed Avery Williams. Now, at first glance, this may seem like just another depth change, but don't be fooled. The Eagles didn't just pick up a typical running back. Williams is a Swiss Army knife, a gadget player, a guy who could shake up the special teams unit and maybe even more. Originally drafted by the Falcons in 2021 as a defensive back, Williams has made a seamless transition to offense, and by 2022, he was lining up everywhere: backfield, slot, tight end, even wide receiver. That's the kind of versatility that makes coaches drool. And here's where it gets even more interesting. With Britton Covey hitting free agency, the Eagles suddenly have a big hole in their punt return game. Enter Williams, a player who averaged 10.9 yards per return in Atlanta. That's nearly on par with Covey's career average, and with a fresh start in Philadelphia, Williams could easily step into that role. But let's not forget the elephant in the room, his ACL injury. He's missed all of 2023, and the question remains, will he be the same explosive player when he steps onto the field in midnight green? And then, just when you thought Philly was done upgrading their offense, they brought in tight end Keelan Grandson. This one raises some eyebrows because the Eagles signed another tight end just a day before, Harrison Bryant. 2 tight ends in 2 days? What does that tell you? It tells you that Dallas Goedert's days in Philly might be numbered. Goedert's entering the final year of his contract, and with no guaranteed money left, the writing is on the wall. Roseman is making moves now, before the inevitable happens. Grandson, a former 4th-round pick, isn't just a warm body to fill the roster, he's a legitimate pass-catching threat. In 2023, he hauled in 30 catches for 368 yards, averaging over 12 yards per reception. Compare that to Jack Stoll, the Eagles' previous TE2, who was practically invisible in the passing game. Grandson gives Philly something it hasn't had in a while: depth at tight end that can actually contribute in the air. And if that wasn't enough, the Eagles also brought back Patrick Johnson, a familiar face, but one that could quietly play a major role. Johnson has been with the Eagles since 2021, mostly as a rotational pass rusher and special teams contributor. But with a defensive system that thrives on depth and relentless energy, having a guy like Johnson who knows the playbook and can step in when needed is a sneaky smart move. He's never recorded an NFL sack, but his value isn't necessarily in the box score, it's in what he brings to the locker room and on special teams. Plus, the Eagles are now coached by Vic Fangio, a defensive mastermind who could potentially unlock a new level in Johnson's game. So, let's put this all together. 1 gadget weapon in Williams who could instantly impact special teams, 1 tight end in Grandson who could be a sign of bigger changes to come, and 1 trusted rotational piece in Johnson who brings much-needed stability to the depth chart. None of these moves are flashy. None of these moves will make the national headlines. But for those of us who know how this team operates, we see what's happening. The Eagles are building something, piece by piece, and the goal is clear: sustain success, stay ahead of the curve, and position this roster for another deep playoff run. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Avery Williams can replace Covey as the primary returner? Are you reading into the Keelan Grandson signing the same way I am? Does this mean the Eagles are moving on from Goedert? And what do you think of Patrick Johnson's return? Just a depth move, or something more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're still here, you're clearly as locked in on these moves as I am. Because let's be honest, these aren't just random depth signings. This is classic Howie Roseman, playing chess while the rest of the league is playing checkers. Every single one of these moves has a deeper purpose, and if you read between the lines, the picture starts to become a whole lot clearer. Let's go back to Avery Williams for a second. You don't just bring in a guy with his skill set unless you have a plan for him. And what stands out the most? His ability to contribute all over the field. Look at how the Eagles have approached their return game in recent years. Covey was solid, but he was a one-trick pony. His only real role was returning punts. But now, with Williams, the Eagles have a guy who can not only return punts, but also be a true offensive weapon. We're talking about a player who, before his injury, was starting to carve out a role as a dynamic threat in Atlanta. Think about it. The Eagles' running back room is already stacked. Saquon Barkley is the clear-cut RB1, A.J. Dillon is the power back, and Will Shipley is the young wild card. But Williams, he's the guy you use when you want to catch defenses off guard. Line him up in the backfield, motion him into the slot, send him out wide, give Jalen Hurts another chess piece to work with. And if his knee is fully healthy, this could end up being one of the sneakiest good signings of the entire offseason. Now, let's talk about Keelan Grandson again, because this is where things start to get really interesting. The Eagles aren't just stacking depth at tight end, they're preparing for life after Dallas Goedert. That's the reality here. Goedert has been a fan favorite, and rightfully so, but his contract situation is impossible to ignore. No guaranteed money left, and Howie Roseman doesn't hold on to veterans just for sentimental reasons. So what's the best way to prepare for a potential departure? You stack the position with cost-effective, high-upside players. Harrison Bryant was the first move. Grandson was the second. And here's the key. This is one of the deepest tight end draft classes in years. If the Eagles pull the trigger on a tight end in the first 3 or 4 rounds, that's all the confirmation we need that Goedert's time in Philly is coming to an end. And I get it, some fans won't like to hear that. But the NFL is a business, and Howie is one of the best in the league at making tough decisions before they become problems. Then, we have Patrick Johnson. And look, I know what some of you are thinking. Why are we making a big deal about a rotational linebacker? But here's why this matters. Depth is everything in this league. We've seen it year after year. The teams that win in December and January are the ones that have quality backups ready to step in when injuries inevitably happen. And Johnson isn't just a depth guy. He's a player who has grown within this system, understands his role, and can contribute on special teams. And let's not forget, he spent time with the Giants last year before coming back to Philly. That means he got a fresh perspective, played in a different scheme, and now returns with even more experience under his belt. Add in the fact that he'll be learning from Vic Fangio, a guy who knows how to get the absolute most out of his defensive personnel, and you start to see why this move makes sense. And this is just the start of the Eagles' offseason. We've seen them make some big splash moves. Saquon Barkley was the headliner, and they invested heavily in locking up their core defensive pieces. But what separates great front offices from average ones is what happens on the margins. And that's exactly what these signings are about. The flashy moves are great, but these under-the-radar additions, these are the ones that win championships. So, I'll leave you with this. What do you think Howie's next move is? Do you see these signings the same way I do? Are we about to see a major shift at tight end? Is Avery Williams the next big special teams weapon for the Birds? And is Patrick Johnson more than just a depth piece? Drop a comment below. And let's not forget, these moves aren't happening in a vacuum. They're part of a much bigger puzzle that Howie Roseman is putting together. The Eagles have been aggressive in free agency, but they've also been smart. Every signing has been calculated, and there's a clear focus on versatility, depth, and future flexibility. That's what separates the good teams from the great ones. You're not just building for one season, you're setting up the roster to be competitive for years to come. And here's the thing, there are still moves to be made. The draft is right around the corner, and Howie isn't done. Will they add more firepower on offense? Will they continue to retool the defense? One thing's for sure, this team isn't standing still. So what do you think is next? Is there another big move on the horizon? Let me know in the comments, and as always, fly, Eagles, fly.